the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
I don't want to lose. I want to win.
I need professional help.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sports Betting Weekly, sponsored by EasySportsData.com. The books use data, shouldn't you too? And this is Easy Sports Data, like the preschoolers use. EasySportsData.com.
I win here and I win there. Now what?
Sports Betting Weekly.
I want to win.
Here comes the money.
Here we go.
Money talk. Here comes the money.
You should also check out SportsBettingLessons.com. You'll learn some old tricks because sometimes how you bet is more important than who you bet. SportsBettingLessons.com.
Let's just do it. Let's put this thing head on. And you were in it to win it. Talk about an education.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Wow, winning.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Welcome to Sports Betting Weekly. I am Second Half Chaz. You may be listening to us on the Belly Up Podcast Network. You may be watching this on SportsBettingWeeklyLive.com. It may be Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern where you are right this second, and you're watching on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Either way, we have one goal. It's always the same. When you end the day, you got more money in your account than when you started the day. And really, that's not a bad way to live life. We are going to hop on with some familiar faces. We're going to talk to Blackhawk West. We are going to talk to John from GMF Sports Consultants. We are going to look at where we're at now. We always take the week after Super Bowl off because football season is a grind when you're dealing with the Easy Sports Data and working pretty much every single day from August. And this year was the craziest year of all, of course. So what we did is we kind of reassessed where we're at, and we're going to talk with some of the guys. But first, we're going to ask them that question we ask them every show at the beginning. Is there anything that you already like today, John, from GMF Sports Consultants, that we could look at for our live betting opportunities so we can make some money over this next 60 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. So right now, there's one game that I'm actually watching. It's the college basketball, Iowa versus Wisconsin. In the first half, they had an extremely low total. Wisconsin shot terrible from the field. Iowa's a team that averages about 86 points per game. They're only at 36. So I was actually looking at that second half over, I think, which was around 76 and a half, I think was where it's at. This game just kicked off in the second half. But I think that over second half at 76 and a half might be a good investment.
Well, let's see where we got. We've got the total for the game, and we can get it right now at over 137.
Okay.
And so I'm not going to do math. Don't get me wrong. Math is a very important part of sports betting. I ain't doing it right now. What I'm doing is I'm just going to bet that. All right, so what I did is I just bet it. And the reason I bet it is because I did a little bit of partial unit. And we talk about units all the time on the show. And if you don't understand units, you don't have to. It's money. I don't bet as much money on plays when I'm hopping on it. But I want to have some action because later on down the road, we can come back after we paid attention for a while and we get all our money back in. You know what? Wes and I do that a lot, don't we, Wes?
Yeah, we sure do. And I think in most cases, we're better in the middle of the game than we are if we like it a week out and spend hours breaking the film down. So, yeah.
And that really, if you think about it, it makes sense because when we're sitting there handicapping and we talk about it, and we're on Thursday, so during football season, the difference between Thursday and Saturday for college or Sunday for the pros is a big difference, especially this year. But in any years, it's a big difference. So once you've watched the game for a while, yeah, it kind of makes sense, that you've got a better feel for it. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Today, coming into the show, is there anything you're on? And now you've been really, really good with hockey lately, haven't you?
Hockey's been great, and I've broken down a lot of different trends, but right now what I'm jumping on is the Islanders and the +1. It just jumped to +1.5. But I actually like them to come back and win the game. They're only allowing 2.2 goals per game. Pittsburgh scored one, and it was a garbage goal. I mean, it was just a dirty puck in front of the net, kind of whacked in. But they've already allowed half of what they typically only allow in a game. Pittsburgh is also the number 3 worst team in the league as far as goals allowed. This is the first game of a twofer, and the first game of the twofers are kind of hard to look at, but typically those twofers split. They play each other twice. But I'm on the Islanders right now with the +1 and to come back and win the game outright.
All right, so we just hopped on the Islanders +1. It's -180, which really is a high number, but technically it's only a high number when you put down $180 and you lose. If you win, it's never a high number because they're going to give you all of that back. You're not the first person that said to me with this new format where they're playing a lot of back-to-back games where whatever happened the first game bet the opposite the second game. So if you're not the only person that said to me, and another guy that I know is a hockey guy said that to me, have the books, Wes, have they adjusted accordingly?
It doesn't look like they've moved at all. They have adjusted to some of the high-scoring teams. Toronto and Edmonton's another one. Florida's scoring a lot of goals. They've adjusted. You'll be hard-pressed to find a Toronto game at over under a 5.5. Those are typically 6.5. And they're scoring a lot of goals. There was a minute there where Montreal was scoring a lot of goals, but they never adjusted to that. But I broke down. I grabbed the last 20 twofers, and 70% of those went loss-win or win-loss, meaning whoever lost the first one came back and won the second one. The only loss-loss or win-win was by a total mismatch of roster or just a better opponent against an inferior opponent. But 70% of the last 2-game series with these teams go the opposite way the second time around.
Yeah, so that's exactly what he said. All right, so I'm looking at live play. I like Houston. They've won me some money. I'm talking about college basketball. And though they're winning at halftime, there's no way they covered because I think they're giving 8 or so for the game, and maybe one of you guys can confirm that for me. But they're down now. They're down 36-34. Let's say we're up by halftime by a point, and the second half just started. I could get Houston -225 to just win the game outright, or I could take them for the original line, which was -7.5. Now, here's how it works with live betting. If you're not new to live betting, you're going to fail probably, 85% of the time to get your bet in. Would you agree, Wes, that's a good number?
Yeah, you have to have fast fingers if you see something you like, because once everybody else sees it, it either changes or it's gone or something happens in the game.
Yeah, I've got pretty fast fingers, but it moves faster than I can. So I did catch up to that Houston game, and the way I bet it is I bet it twice. I bet it -5.5 because I couldn't get the -7.5 anymore, and I bet them just to win the game. So again, anytime you have a situation where you can get a team to just win the game and you get your money back, but if they cover, you win twice, I'm going to take that on a favorite. Actually, most days. All right, but it looks like I didn't get that other bet in because of the fact that it moves so quick. And Wes, a lot of times, like you said, it's the other action, but then a lot of times it's just what's happening in the game.
And these sports that we're investing in right now, I know John is heavy into basketball, and I'm playing a lot of hockey, but these sports we're investing in move fast.
Yep.
This is not football with all the sponsors and a big 4-minute commercial break to where it doesn't really move much.
There's no doubt about it. So I'm going to go back in now, and I'm going to see if I can get Houston. All right, so it is actually at +146 to win by 5.5, and I'm going to take that. All right, so now we're on 3 different plays in 3 different sports, and we're going to see what happens. And I have so much. I had a whole week off. I talked with the DCs. It was just myself and Dan Mater on Worldwide Sports Radio Network Saturday night. But since then, I have been betting the Nets games over and the second half Golden State, and I think I'm 8-0. I think the Nets every single first half went over, all 3 games. It might be 9-0. I just keep betting. I keep cashing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we got a lot of things to talk about. First thing we're going to talk about is we're officially sponsored by ChampionshipFootballs.com. ChampionshipFootballs.com, the coolest present they'll open that day guaranteed. And right now, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, if you're an LSU fan, if you're a Virginia Cavaliers fan, there's some things down there that you will really, really appreciate. And again, it's championshipfootballs.com. Now, we have some live play action, and we're going to talk about our newest venture. Now, Wes, you have a venture where people give you money for your brain, correct?
They do. They actually join, and they get access to just a really great group of guys that are working in the stock market a little bit, but I do a weekly kind of a sports investing training session, and I also post picks there. So we offer premium membership on Chicago Options Trader. It's through a Discord page.
And John, your travels from New York to Las Vegas have gotten you to the point where people use your brain as well.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Kind of been, a gambler for 20 years and decided to take it into the next level with creating my own business, which is GMF Sports. And I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, pretty much all full-time sports investing. So it's been a good run.
And we have talked about it all the time. Over the course of our 8 years of Sports Betting Weekly, we have met dozens and dozens of guys, but about 24 to 28 of them are very good handicappers. I'm talking about a handful of them are like John and make their living, but the other ones probably could if they chose to. But it's a grind. Remember, if you are handicapping for a living, you have to look at almost everything because you might miss an opportunity that's an easy one. There's some low-hanging fruit, but if you don't go into the orchard, you're never going to find it. So they have to do a lot of time, a lot of effort. If you've got a kid or a kid on the way, or you're newly married, or you want to have a girlfriend for some point in your life, whatever your situation is, you may not have the time to do what it takes to cash tickets, but we do it already. So we cash tickets, and that's pretty much what we do, and it's what we've done. And I'm talking about from the beginning, from the very, very beginning, when it was me, Mo from the Mo Radio Show, Sloppy, Johnny D, Tommy Pence. We've been cashing tickets. And now we're going to help you cash tickets by doing some of the work for you. So when you go to sportsbettingweekly.com and you look at the cash tickets page, you got options to help you win money. For us, it's always about what's going on this weekend. So let's start with John. John, what are some of the things you're looking at already on Thursday for Saturday and Sunday?
Well, I'll be obviously staying tuned into college basketball. College basketball is my main focus right now. We talked about this previously. NBA is very tricky, so I'll be limited on the NBA plays that I do. But college basketball, it's a big slate. I won't really look too far ahead if there's 110, 120 college basketball games just on Saturday alone. So it's quite big, but there'll be some big matchups. Transitioning over to hockey on Saturday, there's the Vegas Knights taking on the Colorado Avalanche, which if you're not familiar with hockey, if you just want to watch a great game, tune in. They're going to be outdoors shooting up in Tahoe here. And those are actually two pretty good teams over here in the Western Conference that'll be battling it out. So the Knights are coming off a loss last time here, and now they're going up to Tahoe to play Colorado. So that'll be interesting. I'll be keeping my eye on that, and I might even delve into that game a little bit myself.
Both Saturday and Sunday there's games, West, up in Tahoe.
Yeah, there is. And I'm looking forward to that Tahoe game. Not just because it's an outdoor game, and I think it's going to be cool with the mountains in the background, and it's just cool to see hockey in that part of the world. But Vegas and Colorado, I mean, it was a real matchup last time, and if you were a fan of either side, it probably wasn't very good for your blood pressure or your stress level. But this weekend, I'm looking at FCS football. We have college football going on right now, and they're FCS teams. This is no different than last year when we were looking at the XFL, and I think last year was the AAF. So I got a few plays both tomorrow night and on Saturday that have to do with FCS, and then of course there's going to be some NHL sprinkled in too.
No doubt about it. Yeah, the spring football. I think they're calling it spring football, even though it's 4 degrees some places. Pretty much, that ain't spring anywhere you look at it. All right, so let's see what else I had on my notes to talk about. Well, while we're at it, let's go back. We're going to delve into that live action. All right, so what do you have on that the Iowa game, John.
So the Iowa, so far the total's over 70. They kind of picked it up here in the beginning of the second half. They just went to break, so I don't have the score in front of me. But it's still a pretty close game. Iowa's ahead, but I believe they're over 70 points. And we're still way, way early in the second half of this game. I have to wait till they come back to a commercial break to see. But I still think we got 15, 16 minutes left. So you probably need about, I think, 60 more points, I think, to get to your 130 and change there.
Yeah, we got a while. That's a lot of time. My Houston team, they started the second half on an 11-0 run. The only problem, the Wichita's the 11, and Houston's got the 0. However, I saw last night another game in the NBA, and that's the one thing about basketball. You know, you hit a couple threes, bada boom, you can make up an 11-point lead. But in the NBA, it really is crazy. Teams are getting outscored by a dozen in the first and being up by 15 at halftime. It's just really incredible what you're seeing. And then what about our hockey update, Wes?
Hockey update, the Islanders just went another power play, so they're 0 for 2 on the power play right now. But it's still 1-0, so not in bad shape if you took the one. Got some work to do if you're on the money line.
So, yeah, we talk about that a lot, but I actually did some research on power plays. Power plays are pretty exciting when, A, they're well done, and sometimes it's amazing that they could go 2 minutes and not get a shot off, you know. But it's pretty exciting when, of course, your team has a man advantage. I didn't realize it's not a very high successful rate of scoring on a power play.
No, it's not. I actually was just looking it up, for knowledge to know where they were at. And Chicago is number 3 in the league in power plays, and they're somewhere around, I want to say 42%, something like that.
I mean, the average I think is 20-something a quarter. So 1 out of 4 basically, 1 out of 4. And if you're doing 1 out of 3, you're in the top numbers of the league for sure. So. But still, that's a lot of minutes and a lot of shots with nothing in the net.
And I think those percentages are going to continue to drop this season just because of the familiarity of only playing the same teams this season. There's no interconference play, and you're playing the same teams 2 times in a row. And I think those numbers will drop with a lot of familiarities.
And that has a lot to do with what we talked about with the back-to-back, with whatever team lost the first game has an advantage in the second game because, fool me once, fool me twice. Now, if your team stinks, it don't matter, All right, so let's do this. We're right on the cusp of if we get into this next thing, we're going to have to stop it. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to check our live plays again. We're going to talk about those extra eyeballs. So between the three of us, on a good day, we got 6 eyeballs. And those 6 eyeballs will see things differently. The same exact thing they'll see differently. So that's an advantage if you learn to be upfront and honest with what you're seeing and not let as we talked about with Wes, your already done handicapping. We don't want it to screw with reality because sometimes we're wrong. And it does. A great handicapper is going to be wrong a third of the time. And then we're going to talk about the next 3 weeks because, like we talked about with those games up in Lake Tahoe, and I've been to Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is if you don't believe in God, you've never been to Lake Tahoe. Let me tell you that. There's no doubt about it. So when we get back from break, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the next 3 weeks of our lives. You're listening to Sports Betting Weekly on the Belly Up Podcast Network and the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Sports Betting Weekly.
You keep lying when you ought to be truthing. And you keep losing when you ought to not bet.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Welcome back to Sports Betting Weekly. I am second half Chaz. We are joined by John from GMF Sports Consultant and our very own Black Hawk West. So we have now a few weeks ahead of us where we're going to kind of establish what we're doing going forward with the season, because you've got football's over, and we've had no football for a while, so we didn't really the last few weeks we had those 2 games, 3 games, a week off. So we've got rested, and what we're going to do is we're going to look forward to seeing what we're going to happen. I'm not sure why our academies choose to mute themselves. Okay, so I'm trying to get Blackhawk West involved here. Can you hear me, Wes?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, good. All right, so we're talking first with NHL hockey. We already mentioned the Tahoe games, but one of the things I noticed when I was looking at hockey is some teams have played 20 games, other teams have only played 12, and they've already had 56 games canceled. So you're as knowledgeable a hockey guy as I know. How's this going to impact them when they get closer to the playoffs?
So it's points first. That's ultimately what decides. But if you get a draw, there's gonna be a metric where they're determining games played. So if you got 2 teams that finish the season with, I don't know, call it 10 points. I mean, they're gonna finish with a lot more than that. But 2 teams that are tied for first at 10 points, one of the tiebreakers, wherever it ranks in the tiebreakers, head-to-head's a part of it, but one of the tiebreakers will also be games played. So you want your win percentage to be up. And always in hockey, the outright wins outweighs the points gained by overtime losses or shootout losses.
Yeah, actually, so what my notes read was, I think I misread them. They originally scheduled 56 games, right? Is that what it was for the season? So if they've only got 12 to 20, for the next month, solid, we're going to be talking a lot of hockey.
It's every day. There's a slew of hockey games on every single day, and that's created one of the challenges is you don't know when teams are getting tired, and then sometimes they get a day off, sometimes they get 3 days off. So their level of conditioning is really a question mark because you just don't know how they're feeling, and there's not really travel in between the 2 games. But sometimes there is. You play a doubleheader in Vegas, and then you turn around and you fly out to California, depending on the team or the level of conditioning.
No doubt about it. All right, so the baseball players showed up. Some baseball players showed up. Next week, the full squad show up. Spring training games start the end of February, and then April 1 is opening day. John, do you ever touch spring training games?
Absolutely not. I would never, ever bet a spring training game, or should I advise anybody to bet a spring training game? If the starters or any majority of the ball players play, it's maybe for 1 or 2 innings. There's a ton of backup guys. Their main concern is get these guys a couple of bats here and there, not get anybody injured. Even for the first, I would say, 3 weeks of Major League Baseball, we will tread very, very, very lightly until we start seeing some trends. And, I just start, eyeing the teams and everything like that. So yeah, no preseason.
Yeah, we will definitely have our Easy Sports data for baseball this year. It looks like we're probably going to have it for Canadian football as well, but we have made a decent amount of money over the years betting NFL preseason games because the trends are very much team-based and organizational-based. It really doesn't matter who's playing with preseason because, as you mentioned, the players may not even be on the field. The coaches and the ownership, they do it the same way every single year. So we've had some trends. But what about you, Wes? Have you ever put a penny of your own money on a preseason baseball game?
Preseason baseball, I won't. As far as baseball goes, I wait for some data and some stats. And my plays on baseball are typically in-game. I don't like to go into baseball and have a dog in the fight ahead of time. I didn't grow up a baseball fan. I grew up in Chicago, so my family was always fighting with each other over which team's better. But as you know, during the playoffs this past fall, it was fantastic to be taking those inning overs or inning unders, and you got 9 of those every single game. So I'd far rather go into it that way. So from that angle, I would go, if I was going to advise somebody on a spring training baseball game, I would advise to go that way, but I wouldn't even a tenth of a unit, whatever your unit may be.
Well, it's funny. I do remember one game in particular where it was like 2 outs and it was a man on second, and you bet over a half a run. And so what happened is they scored, and then you did it again, and they scored like 4 times in a row. I think you cashed like 5 tickets in one half of an inning because they just kept scoring. And at some point, once you're up, why not? All you're going to lose is one of your bets. And the odds, I think, if I remember, the odds kept getting a little bit higher because everybody's saying, no, there's no way they're going to get another hit with a man on base. And they did it like 4 or 5 times in a row.
There were a couple of the Dodgers, I believe, not only versus in the National League Championship, but versus the Rays, where the first couple innings they didn't score, and then all of a sudden, after the 5th or 6th inning, they would put up a lot of runs. And I've been noticing the trends too, especially in baseball. The middle relief and even your closers have not been as good as they have been in the past. I'm a Yankees fan, and I can attest to that all day with Chapman. It's a pain watching him sometimes, and I get a little nervous. But yeah, definitely, there's been a big variance from starting pitching once they hand that over to the middle relievers, into that bullpen.
I know. I just saw today that the Oakland guy signed a $1 million or $11 million contract, a 1-year contract for $11 million. For $11 million, you better get everybody out you face. You shouldn't blow any saves.
Yeah, San Diego also just gave Tatis a pretty nice contract.
Yeah, but he plays every inning of every game. This guy comes in only when they're winning. They're already winning, by the way.
Yeah.
They're already winning. Your closer's not coming in to win the game. He's coming in to save the game. It's just amazing how bad they can be sometimes. All right, so then we're looking at NBA. Now, they're supposed to play 72 games. They've already lost 20-something to postponements. And I put a social media post up this week. It's just amazing how important looking at postponements has become if you're following a specific team, because now with the weather this week, we had even more. You just don't even know if they're going to play. But ironically, they're only scheduled, I did not know this, guys, till March to the All-Star game. They haven't even come out with their second half schedule yet.
Yeah, the NBA, I think, really kind of dropped the ball, not only with the kind of all-star scheduling or how they worked it into this season. I personally think they probably should have skipped the all-star game this year. But yeah, I feel kind of how they worked this schedule is a little strange. And especially, like you said, they haven't even put anything on the calendar. So, like, when are they going to plan on start doing that?
and again, I understand that, these are billionaires playing with millionaires, and billionaires. If you have an ear after your name, you like money and you want your money, and it's your money. We talk about you're playing with house money. They're playing with their own money, and they know it. So it'll be interesting to see how that fights out. Now, the Kentucky Derby. We talk about that because that's a pretty big part of our show. And it is every year. Now, there's no preps this weekend. There's 3 more next weekend, but those aren't really the prep races I consider. The prep races I'm looking at is the Florida, the New York, the California, maybe the Arkansas, those races. So the next ones are March 6th. That's the first set of those final preps from some horses. And when I say it's the final preps, if you don't do good, you don't go forward. It's really that simple. And the fields will shrink and shrink and shrink. But we're looking forward to that week because that'll be a week where I know some of my plays on the Cash Tickets website will be thoroughbred horses. I do pretty good. Ever since I started working with Mo for the Mo Radio Show, like 7-8 years ago, I've done pretty good. Actually, more than that. It's probably 10 years ago now. I've done really well with the plays because I don't bet a lot of horses. I look for quality. If you have a card at a racetrack where the pick four leading up to the feature is over $1 million combined, and they're all over $100,000, you're going to get my attention. I don't want to have a $75,000 stake race leading up to a feature. If that's the case, I'm probably not going to bet it because I like to string a couple, especially when the best horse wins, you've got to hit a couple doubles or a pick 3 or a pick 4 to make any money. Pick 4s are pretty hard to hit, actually. I don't really bet them very often, but I do rolling doubles. I'll do pick 3s, and I'll throw in a pick 4 usually on the one race. But so those will be part of our show a couple weeks from now for sure. And then the last thing I got here is a pretty important little thing. we got 4 weeks, and then I guess all these teams are going to be going to Indianapolis. Wes, it's March Madness.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't really start looking at the college ball until a couple weeks from now, just because a little bit of a cool down from football, and hockey's pretty much in full gear. But I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot of teams that are playing well that are not your typical names that are always there. I mean, you have your leaders, but there's some good surprises in there, and it's going to be a fun tournament to watch. And fingers crossed that it happens this year.
Well, you guys remember Ian from Prop Swap, and you may not have seen that, but if you find Prop Swap on Twitter, I think it's on their Twitter account today. You need to do it tonight sometime. They are giving away a ticket, a $20 win the tournament ticket on every single team that makes it in the tournament. So they said, who do you want? You retweeted with who you like. And I looked, and the only constant I saw, and I probably put, 90 minutes into looking at the top 25, the only constant I saw was they are inconsistent. That's it. There's only 2 teams that really, I feel, it wouldn't be a surprise to me, and that's the top 2, Baylor and Gonzaga.
Yeah.
So I went with Gonzaga. They're only plus 200, but I think to myself, you know what? I don't normally bet futures, but if Prop Swap, it's Prop Swap, not Prop B, Prop Swap. If Prop Swap is putting the money up for me, I'll take 2-1 all day long. If you had to pick a team right now, John, who would you bet?
That's tough because I'm in the same boat. Obviously, Gonzaga and Baylor, they have just looked leagues better than everybody else. Gonzaga had a couple close games, but that's because of the familiarity they played with the teams of that conference. I would say those 2, and I wouldn't really want to call them a dark horse, but I would actually throw in Florida State in there as well. I like the way Florida State is playing. They have a lot of big athletic guys who love to run the floor. They're coming off a big win too a couple of days ago, so I would throw in Florida State in there too.
They dominated.
Virginia. They dominated Virginia, which is tough to do because Virginia is very, very good. Virginia, I would put in that category because we all know about the defense. I just don't feel they have the offense this year to compete with, let's say, a Gonzaga or especially a Baylor. Baylor has been blown out.
Right,
and then we see what they did, what Florida State did with them.
The one thing about Florida State is their threes are dropping, they're dangerous. If their threes are dropping, they're done.
No. Yep.
And Virginia's going to beat you 58 to 54.
It's going to be a slow,
exactly.
It's going to be a slow drag game. They're not in no rush to push the ball up the court. I mean, they're not running. They're walking that ball up the court. They limit possessions. They want to make sure put you in the tough situations to take shots.
No doubt.
So that's kind of their game plan. But, Florida State had the ball rolling where they were making shots and just running on them. And I think if let's say they were to play Gonzaga has that up-tempo where they like to push it, and they're the same kind of thing. Once Gonzaga's hitting shots, it's tough to beat them.
You got to give that coach props. I mean, that conference is nothing, but then they go and beat top 10 teams all day long. And how many years now have they been not good, but great? I mean, it's a long run of being great.
Yeah.
What about you, Wes? You have to pick somebody.
Yeah, just the numbers.
You're going to go on Prop Swap on the Twitter page. You're going to retweet it, and you're going to pick. And if they draw your name, you're going to get that team. Who's your $20 going to be on?
There's no secret I'm an Ohio State fan, but I'm a numbers guy, and my pick would be Nova. I think that where they're going to find their seeding, they're going to be 3 or 4-ish seed, and so I think that their competition early is going to be a little bit more competitive than if they were a 1 seed. But by the time they get their way into Elite 8, Final 4, they will have played their tougher games. So I kind of like them to build momentum early, and I'm not saying they're winning the tournament, but for a free play, I'm throwing my money at some value, and I like Nova because they've been there a few times before. Where if you go from Gonzaga all the way down to 15, there's just not a ton of Final Four experience there.
Yeah, no, I looked at both of those teams actually that you mentioned, and I'm not. I think the Big Ten's got a couple teams up there, but I think it's because the Big Ten's just not that strong, and so these teams are feasting on those weak teams. That's what I thought. And you know what? Villanova burnt me a couple times already this year, and so I think I was biased. But they were all 10 to 25 to 1 in that range, I think. All right, so March Madness. Let's talk a little about March Madness, because if I'm correct, the conference tournaments start here in just a couple weeks. And I'm not quite sure how they're going to do the conference tournaments this year. Remember, that's when this is right about last year when it all fell apart. We never got to the conference championships. And I'm a San Diego State alum, okay? We had a great team. We had like
Very
3 guys that were
conference.
seniors and left their school to come to our school, and we were good. We were really good. Not that we're pretty good this year, but we were really good last year. So those what ifs. But in terms of tournament play, do you change, John, how you handicap when teams are going into their tournament?
A little bit, just because, these teams face each other throughout the years, and they're awfully familiar with each other's playing style. So this is where you got to really look at the matchup and really play the numbers game and make sure you're grabbing the best possible lines in these situations. Because for the most part, these games are going to be close. This is conference championships. These teams are hungry, and like I said, they know each other. Now, this year might be a little bit different. You have a team like, let's say, a Duke, who normally would be stacked and have all their players, but now they have a player that opted out. So that's stuff that you got to kind of pay attention to. But it's definitely something you have to look at, and definitely do a little bit more research if you're jumping in just for the college championships, because they're going to be tough games.
Well, one of the things that if you're normally the top 2 seeds in most conferences get the bye.
Yep.
That's really a big help, because they don't play back to back. College teams never play back to back until it's the most important game of the year, their conference tournament. They don't even play back to back when they're in the March Madness. The only time they play back to back are in Hawaii at Christmas time and in their conference tournament. And if you're a low seed that's won a couple games, and you're coming on your 3rd game to a team that's only played twice, that extra day of rest when they're the better team because they got that rest really makes a difference. What about you, Wes? When you bet conference tournaments, do you look at anything different?
No, and I don't really put a lot of stock into the competition there, because in a lot of cases, a team that is not the best team in the conference actually wins the conference. So I think that I don't think that they're normal games. I think that by the time they get there, they're just playing a little bit different. They've seen each other before. I really don't put a lot of stock in those games. If I do play them, and if I advise them, I advise taking points and taking dogs rather than looking for scores to get run up. Because once you get into a tournament, no matter where you are, I mean, in whether you're in the Final Four or you're in your conference tournament, a win by 1 is a win by 1, and it's not going to hurt your rankings, and the rankings don't even matter anymore. And most of the time, I think some of these teams, unless a big team gets blown out, I don't think it affects the seeding into the big tournament. So I would advise dogs and points.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to those conference tournaments, normally they're pretty standard. You know where they are because the same conference is playing the same places. This year, we may not even know until early in March, so we'll see. When we get back from break, we're going to look at our live plays, see how we're doing. We're going to talk about this weekend's plays on our Cash Tickets page, and we're going to wrap it up. You're listening to Sports Betting Weekly on Belly Up Podcast Network, the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and you might even be watching it on SportsBettingWeeklyLive.com.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Sports Betting Weekly.
Sit back and enjoy the show.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Welcome back to Sports Betting Weekly. I'm second half Chaz. We're going to go out right now to Black Hawk West and get an update on our live action on the Islanders.
It is 2-0, bad guys. So you're on the +1. We're doing well. We need an early goal. We cannot go into the final 5 minutes and let that empty netter happen. But I still like the Islanders, but it's 2-0 right now.
So let's look at that game live and see how the odds have changed. So now, plus 2.5 is minus 127. I don't remember what I had. I've got it in my account. Plus 1.5 is 213. So, you know what? If you like the Islanders, I'm going to take the 2.5 points because technically I'm winning that bet right now. I like bets where I'm winning when I bet it. I've always thought those were good bets. I'm winning. Right now, I'm winning. So, kind of like the unders, right? You're winning an under until you're losing. And then it's lost, right? So let's go out to our over bet. We have over in the Iowa-Wisconsin game. It looks like Iowa's starting to dominate now, though.
Yeah, I was really starting to put away the game here. There's about 4 minutes left. I believe our team total was at 122-ish or something like that. So you need, I forgot where you, I think you said 136 you got, or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
we needed.
They needed 70. I think they needed 70, didn't they?
Yeah. So Iowa's at 68. Like I said, they're one of the highest scoring teams in the nation. They average about 83, so 86. So they're going to get close to that. We got a little under 4 minutes left. The thing is, though, is that Iowa's up by 14. So they're probably looking to maybe slow down the ball a little bit. On the other side of that, Wisconsin has 8 fouls. So if they start fouling, it's going to put Iowa on the line, and they're going to be in the bonus here pretty soon.
Anytime you have the over in a basketball game, you want it to stay close but not too close. Because if it's too close, of course, they play conservative. And if it's too far, they don't foul. But if it's just right, I guess that would be the Goldilocks handicapping, right? You want it just right.
Just right there. That's
so
right.
They'll shoot their threes, they'll foul. They'll shoot their threes, they'll foul. But that's another great tip that you're going to see when you follow us on our cash tickets page on sportsbettingweekly.com is that a lot of times my plays are, as I mentioned earlier with the Warriors, they have nothing to do with the team or with the game. They just have to do with the team. A team that normally scores 80 points and is at 30 at halftime and the over-under in the second half is 36 is a good play. Now, whether they cash that's a whole other animal, but if you bet it enough and you get decent odds, you're going to win more than you lose. So let's see here. So right now, that game is, if I go into the live action, I could see.
We're at 122 total right now with 3 minutes, but both the teams are in the bonus now.
All right, so
we just got a foul.
Kind of foul, we're going to see free throws.
Yeah, we're going to see some free throws, and considering how these teams, you know, kind of a little rivalry there, Iowa, Wisconsin. I expect it's probably to get a little chippy here, probably more so since Wisconsin's down by 14.
Yeah.
So we hope maybe we'll get some threes, and let's hope for some fouls, and let's hope that they make fouls. Yep. Sometimes this free throw shooting in college basketball is a little weird.
It's brutal. Yeah. It's brutal. I saw a game the other night, and that's what I'll do. I work all day, but I'm on the West Coast, so it's pretty cool because, you know, at the end of the day, you still got some games, and if the West Coast games are on, and my kids, I told you before, my kids love basketball, but I don't remember. It was a college game. I was getting out of the shower, and they clanked like 4 in a row. And even without action on the game, my heart went out for people that had action on that game because it kept hitting the rim. And it was the kind of team where I remember looking, because, you know, I'll glance. If I'm watching a game, I'm going to know, you know, what's happening. They were like up by 5. They were given 7, and they missed 4 free throws in a row or something. All right, so in the Houston game, it's now 56-53, about 5 minutes to go in that game. Remember, we have Houston minus 5.5. But we covered ourselves with a money line play. They were down 11 to start. It was an 11-0 run to start the second half, and now they're down in the second half 23-19. So they picked up quite a bit of that. And that's one thing about basketball. I don't normally bet basketball very often. And when I do bet it, I really like that whole team total thing because half of the time you don't care. You really don't care. And as Wes mentioned, with hockey and basketball, they're so much faster than football. You know, how many times in football you're sitting around saying, I need a pick 6? Guess what? You get those like one every 400 times you need them. But those stories are great when you do get them. There's no doubt about it. All right, so let's talk about our picks page. we've got a picks page. And what we're basically saying is, for $15 a weekend, you can hang around with us. That's really what it's saying. You're gonna for $15, which, let's see, that'll get my wife a decent bottle of red. She likes Pinot Noir, but I'd have to take the taxes out of my own pocket. So that's how cheap $15 is. And I think about it on the website. It's lunch and a beer without the tip. So you can't really do much with $15. You really need $20 to do anything, but for us, you only need $15. And that'll get you whatever we're going to talk about this weekend. So I want to know what Black Hawk West. I talk with Black Hawk West more than John. I talk with John a lot, but I talk with Black Hawk West as much as Tommy or Johnny D or any of the other guys. And so Black Hawk West, give me an idea what you think Saturday and Sunday are going to look like if I give you my $15.
Well, Saturday we're going to be talking hockey. Sunday I'm going to be playing the Oak Lawn card. I like a couple of those G3 races out at Oak Lawn. But
you want to for our Pony Challenge crowd, you want to help us out with the G3?
It's a grade 3 race. It's not a traditional Kentucky Derby prep race, but it is a graded stakes race. So it'll help them get into higher stakes, even a Breeders' Cup down the road. Certainly they're not going to be Kentucky Derby horses.
So
but
there's basically 3 gradings of races, 1, 2, and 3. So that would be the least rich of the 3.
Yet still very good quality of
that's a graded stakes.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing that on Sunday. I'm gonna be playing some FCS football games on Saturday with a little bit of hockey sprinkled in, and then Sunday there's gonna be some NHL plays.
Yes, it's a full weekend, but again, like you said, if you print out the board, you would with college basketball when it's rocking on a Saturday, and we used to go down to TJ, it's mind-boggling because every single TV has a different game on. Even in pro football, you don't have that. Some of the TVs have the same game. College basketball Saturday, there's a bazillion games. You literally could run out of paper if you were printing the board. So let's talk to John from GMF Sports Consultants. Now, John, you also have some exciting news for your own customers in terms of a discounted price for our introductory. So let's talk about what, if we give you our $15, what you and I are going to talk about this weekend, and then tell us about the deal you came up with.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, $15 is going to get you all the plays that we're going to do for Saturday and Sunday. Right now, my main focus is college basketball. I will sprinkle some NBA and some NHL in there as well. But there's a ton of college basketball games on Saturday, 115, 120 games have been the average. So we really try to find the quality ones and focus those down into about 4 or 5 plays. Majority of my plays are going to be straight bets. I do some parlays mixed in for there, but we like to focus on just regular straight bets. That's the most consistent way to stay profitable on a long-term basis. Not only that, I'm going to teach you if you have any questions about bankroll management, if you have any questions about what units are, if maybe you just have no idea and your betting amounts are all over the place, I can also give you some insight and help you kind of tighten that up, because that's one of the key things, moving forward. If you want to take this as a second income, if you want to move up in level of sports betting, you got to understand, bankroll management and being patient is key in this game.
Oh, it is so true. And really, I've always told people, anybody that'll listen actually, that I started really getting involved in sports when I suffered an injury that prevented me from playing golf anymore. And all I did was substitute the golf money for the sports betting money. But in all the years that I played golf, I think I won one hole. One time I won a hole. I never won a skin. I was always the one buying lunch. I was always one paying up at the end of the day. So I was buying my bucket of balls. I was getting new balls. I was getting my shafts re-gripped. I was buying a new bag because it ripped. I was getting a new cart when the wheels broke. I was always spending the money and never getting anything in return. But in the last 4 weeks, I've taken about $1,000 out of my account for sports betting without ever once swearing. Now, that's not true. You swear a lot in sports betting. You probably swear as much in sports betting as you do golf, but without ever throwing anything. And if you've played golf and you say you've never thrown anything, you're probably very, very good, or you have short-term memory, or you're just plain out a liar. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah, and if you give me $15, what you're going to get is my kind of handicapping is pretty basic. If you win for me, I stick with you until you screw me. If you screw me twice, you're dead to me. Sloppy would always say that. They're dead to me. They're dead to me. But it really is true. But more importantly, you're going to get live action plays when you talk with me because I'm always looking at stuff that, you know what, I knew who was playing. I didn't really have an opinion, and then I'm going to hop on something. So speaking of hopping on something, we're going to look real quick at that Iowa. Let's get back to that Iowa game because I think we got a little flurry of activity that might get us some numbers there.
We are getting close. We're inside 2 minutes, but since we last talked, they got to the line. I've already seen 4 missed free throws. So there's been 4 missed free throws in the last couple of minutes, which has only been about 2 minutes of game time.
And that's what we've talked about. And again, they're kids, just like a college kicker missing a kick. What are you going to do? You know.
So we're at 1:35 right now with 1:20. So I think we are extremely close to getting you that over there. I would assume they get another bucket or a foul here or something like that. I'm hoping they do, but it's close. Yeah, 135 is our total with 1:07 left.
Wichita still leads Houston by 4 with a couple minutes left there, so it looks like they're going to be that's a game I may try to define when we get off the air because that'll be free throw and threes. And, of course, the Islander game, we hopped on it again, so we got 2 live plays on the Islander game, and they just started the third quarter. So, all right, we're going to let the guys kind of tell you where to find them. Wes, where do we find you?
You find me at 151 Sports on either Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, and I have a Discord page. It's Chicago Options Trader, and you free membership for a week, and you join, and you'll find me along with a bunch of interesting Wall Street plays.
Well, let me tell you, I've listened to that show now for about a month. You've been sending it to me, and it's excellent. It really is. It goes by quickly. It's only 25-minute call. Maybe 20.
Try and keep it 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30-minute call. And it does. It goes by quick, but it's really very educational. And I told you, I mean, I like Black Hawk West, but Professor West would go now, I think, as a hashtag just as well. That's really what you sound like. You do a real good job. John.
Yep. Well, GMF Sports Consultants, GMF Sports Betting, Instagram, Facebook, type up GMF Sports. I should pop right up there. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And then as we were talking earlier, not only that, if you wanted to jump on this weekend package, they can come on to your site and they can actually get the weekend package, which is $15, which I normally charge about $44. So you get in a discount. And you get to work with me for 3 days if you sign up today.
That's a pretty good discount. So we're very, very thankful for that.
$5 a day. That's $5
exactly.
a day.
Think about it.
Yeah.
And you know, because for me it's $7.50 a day. Because I'm only talking to Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to keep track of our picks, and we're honest. That's the one thing you're going to get with us is you're going to get honesty. But you know what, guys? I've been doing this for 8 years with these same guys. It's pretty easy to be honest when you're right more than you're wrong. And again, it's the same thing I tell my wife and my kids. It's not that I'm right because I'm right. I'm right because you're wrong. And with handicapping, it's really what it comes down to. But with us, because we understand, hey, I was right, but I was off a little. It's almost always that point spread. And that's where that live action and the second half action bails you out because the point spread. If you like the team to win by 13 and they're only winning by 1 at halftime and you like them for a reason, there's a reason they're not winning. And if you've watched the game and you paid attention, you may say, no, they're not winning because that guy is hurt or that guy's shooting terrible and I don't think he's going to shoot his way out of it. Remember, these guys aren't all Steph Currys that could shoot their way out of a slump. I mean, I watched him last night. It was amazing. He kept missing, but he kept shooting. And then all of a sudden, when it counted the most, he hit 3 or 4 threes that were just daggers. All right, so so we're looking
They came
forward.
back from 14 in that game.
Yeah. Well, I got him at plus.
I was on the Miami Heat side. So
I got him at
Curry
plus
gave
240 in the
Yeah,
second half.
yeah.
I got him at plus 240 to win the game outright, and they did. So it was a good way for me to finish my night. I am Second Half Chaz. Again, you can follow us on Belly Up Podcast Network. You can catch us on Belly Up Sports. We're live every Thursday on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I also get the pleasure of talking with Dan and Chris, the DCs, with Mikey on Saturday at 9:30, also on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. And between the two shows, guys, you're going to cash more tickets than you're going to throw away, and hence the term, always be cashing.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Next time.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.